Welcome back to another episode. I'm here today with Ellis Kane. We're going to be talking about balance between femininity and masculinity, the connection between modeling and fitness, and just a little bit about your story. I'm Julian Tulai, and this is The Way of the World. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
How you doing?
Not too bad, yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. So the reason why I invited you is because obviously we always had a really nice connection, and I think you're also quite deep for a bodybuilder.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Do you want to tell me how, when you decided to get into fitness?
Oh God, roll it back. I was a twig in school. I was like a stick, and for me it was like, I think that was, I became very aware about body image at a young age. You know, it was in and around the school. Phones were relatively new. When I was in school, like the iPhone had just come out. Before that, we'd had like the LG Pop and all these touch phones. So we started to get like a gist of what the world was. And we had a lot of like celebrities and things kind of in our faces. And for me, I became very quickly aware of body image and like the different builds of people in school. And there was big lads in my school. I was quite a small lad, very skinny, small frame. For me, it was always challenging because I felt less masculine, less alpha. You know, you can really feel that in the midst of your kind of youth within school. And I was actually quite a liked person in school. I kind of got along with everybody, which really helped.
You were one of the cool kids.
I was, right. It was like, you always had like these little bubbles and groups of people in school. And it's like, I did hang around with the people who were more popular, if we want to put it that way. But I also got along with the people who weren't. It wasn't like you're below me and we're above you. It was like, I just got along with everybody. And that helped. But it didn't mean that there weren't comments now and then about my frame, that I was skinny or scrawny.
Okay.
And I think that played on my mind. And eventually, after I started working at 14 and by 16, I finally was able to get a gym membership. And I thought, fuck it, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do something about this. And I hadn't discovered bodybuilding. I had no idea what bodybuilding was. I didn't even know probably who Arnold Schwarzenegger was. None of this. It was literally just like, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to build these things that people call fucking muscles. So I'm going to try. And
how did you find that initial period?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big transition because when I was young, I was a very sporty child. I was very athletic and I played in a lot of different sports. My frame helped me because I was a cross-country and county athletic runner.
Okay.
I was long distance, you know, I was like an engine. And that was my nickname when I played football because I was a midfielder primarily. I was an engine. I could run and run and run and run. No one would outrun me. I was never gassed. And I was asthmatic, which was very strange. I was never gassed. I had great stamina. And my frame, that skinny frame, really, really helped me.
Yeah.
When I went into this kind of so-called muscle gaining phase that I knew absolutely nothing about, it was a different transition because it was like, right now I'm gonna try to get bigger. So it was kind of this huge transition of now I'm gonna carry weight that I'm not used to. I'm now gonna spend a lot more time eating and investing into training that's aside from running and sports and being like this athletic smaller build. And I think that for me was a whole new ball game. And
it was almost like a change of identity, right?
Complete change of identity. And for me, what was incredible is in the first 6 months of training, I met a very cool young man in the gym called Viet. His nickname was V. And he was a power lifter and his brother was an Olympic weightlifter. And he taught me the ropes. So after the first 6 months of the gym, I spent the next year literally just powerlifting, and learning kind of those bigger compound movements.
That is so important to start right.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like I'd gone from then this skinny runner to like now I'm trying to pick up fucking super heavy weights. You know, I was like, when I started training, I was 53 kilos. I'm now like 82 kg. And after about a year already, I'd gained maybe 6 kilos or something like this. I was about 60 kilos and I was deadlifting like 160, 170. I mean, this for me was like unheard of. I was like, wow, like, I'm not this skinny kid anymore. I mean, I still was a skinny kid. But it was different. It was a change of identity for sure. But
did that change the way that you relate to people or just your relationships in general at the time?
Yeah, you know, it was really interesting because obviously social media and everything was very new, and obviously when I was like 16, I was still in school and stuff like this. So social media, Instagram was relatively new, and loads of different things were put in our faces. You know, the minute I started going to the gym, I mean, I'm naturally a very lean person, and you've seen I'm very vascular and stuff like this. The minute I started going to the gym, all these veins start popping out.
Yeah.
I went into classroom and people were like, he's on steroids. He's on steroids. I didn't even know what steroids were. I was like, what are steroids?
That's a nice compliment, though.
So it's a nice compliment, but I was still like this.
Yeah.
It's just we had no idea what it was. So for me, it was like, it didn't change maybe kind of how I approached and spoke with people, but it definitely gave me a new identity, and people looked at me a little differently because it was like, oh, he's going to the gym now, he's training now, look at all his veins and this and that. And it was like, it was a cool feeling, you know, people noticed the hard work. And it didn't take long for people to start saying, oh, like, what are you doing? Like, can you show me how to?
Yeah. So you created some sort of trend.
Right, it created a trend. And I think that's also where maybe I found kind of what or who I was a little bit, you know. The problem was I never chose what route I wanted to go down. You know, I played basketball from a young age for Milton Keynes Lions, who are now London Lions, that play at the Copper Box. I was a county cross-country athletic runner. I was playing korfball and got scouted by England to play for England. So it was like, do I do that? At the time, I was also playing football and had been scouted, and I was playing for a team as well. So it was like, I didn't really know what path to take. And in the end, I chose none of them. And I think that still kind of haunts me a little bit to this day, because it's kind of the thought of being, you know, I watched Creed 3 yesterday and I was like, wow, it'd just be fucking sick to be an athlete. And as a bodybuilder, we are athletes, but it's just not the same, you know?
Yeah.
And the gym kind of helped me find my identity, but I also questioned if it pulled me away from doing something that I...
Did you feel pressured at the time to having to choose a path like that, or is that why maybe you didn't go for it?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think as children nowadays, we are quite pushed to have everything figured out. And fucking hell, I think most 40-year-olds don't have their life figured out. At least they think they do, and they don't.
I think in general, we just have a lot more of a choice. I think back in the day, like 50, 60 years ago, that could only be one thing, maybe two things. Like you didn't have much of a choice. And I think in a way it made life not necessarily easier, but more simple.
100%.
I think right now you could easily live your whole life without doing anything. You could be on benefits, you could be doing anything that, you know, and just surviving.
That's what Matthew McConaughey says. He says, options will make a tyrant of us all.
Yeah.
And it's very true. You know, you decrease your options, you almost accidentally, almost innocently find yourself where you need to be. You know, it's that kind of Bill Gates concept of, I'm not going to have a wardrobe of 20 different outfits. I'm just going to wear the same thing every day. I don't have to think. Yeah, I think in some ways, yeah, maybe it pulled me away from doing something that I could have been destined to do, that I could have been very talented at.
Because I think you're very talented at a lot of things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for that compliment. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're in the same place now with having to make a choice?
I've been in this swing and roundabout for years, mate. I mean, I was on the fucking train this morning thinking to myself, like, I'm still lost because I don't know where to put my attention on my career. And like, I could put it there and I could put it there and I could put it there, but I also want to put it there. And it's like, where do I direct most of my focus? The problem is I'm also in this mindset of like, jack of all trades, master of none, but two is usually better than one. It's like, there's only so much you can do really well before something becomes suboptimal and it's not as good as you could have it or could do it. And then the question is, do you better leave it away, or do you continue to still try to make an effort of it? And I think I've been in that swing and roundabout for a long time with a lot of things. It was like I've always been capable of being good at a lot of things because I apply myself, but choosing one of them to become really good at, I'm very bad at making decisions in that sense.
Where do you think your heart is with that? Because I see you as a very artsy person.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing. I'm very creative and intelligent, but I don't know how to use my creativity. You know, I've got a lot going on up here. You know, when we have a conversation, I'm a good speaker. I can express myself quite well. I'm good with words. But putting it on paper, fucking hell, it's just, can't get that on that. Do you know what I mean? I can do that, but the rest of it, I'm lost. You know what I mean? It's difficult. I think there's too much to express, and I don't know where to start. And that's the problem. When you don't know where to start, or you don't know kind of the approach you take, you just find yourself kind of running in circles.
Do you feel like maybe modeling was kind of a good compromise, or between perhaps like the fitness side of things and also being a bit more artistic? Is that the way that you see it, or not so much?
I think that the modeling is an interesting one because, you know, when I started modeling, it was like I knew that it was a minefield, you know, because the modeling world generally is quite a toxic one, and the level that you can express yourself to is actually vastly limited when it comes to commercial modeling. Obviously, I'm not a tall individual, and I would even argue that the individuals that are tall, that do work within campaigns that are catwalk based, the expression of themselves is still very limited. You know, they're expressing other people's artwork. You know, when we go to Milano Fashion Week or something like that, and we see these extreme crazy outfits, you know, that these models are wearing, no one would wear this in the street because it's not fashion based for people to wear. You know, this is an art statement. It's creativity. It's boldness. It's someone trying to tell us something in their own way, right? With commercial modeling, which is primarily what I did for ASOS and Boohoo and ProDirect and people like this, you know, it's very box cut. It's like turn left, turn right, stand here, do that.
Or based on
looks and just it's just simple, you know. It's put some clothes on, you look good in those clothes because you built your physique like this, or you've got a good face, and it's like left, right, turn around, cool, see it, bye. And it's very bland. It's very basic. What I found is the level of expression that came from modeling is doing stuff that I truly wanted to do. You know, when I stopped modeling for money and for campaigns and for fame or whatever it was, that's where I found I could express myself. You know, working with photographers where we were like, let's just fucking meet up and create something fucking cool. Like, what ideas you got, and see what's going on up here and just do some wacky shit. And it worked. You know, and sometimes it didn't, and that's also cool. But I can tell you now, I've had far more fun doing shoots that we just pieced together bit by bit than I did with any company or brand ever.
I've got like two questions at the back of that. First one is that, do you think there's a platform for something like that, for like, you know, creative photography, you know, mixed with modeling?
What do I create? You know, because I've got so much going on in my head. I'm like, well, we could have sit down podcast talks and deep talks and talk about life and different topics, and that shit I love. But it's like, what videos do I create for people? Do I use my knowledge and create those sorts of videos? I mean, I'm also a funny person. I could create like kind of comedic videos, but the question is like, do these videos benefit people? You know, like my partner's always like, oh, we got to make TikToks together and let's do TikTok. I'm like, I'm not a TikToker. Babe, I'm just not a TikTok. I can't do these dances and stuff. That's just not me. And I'm sure people would love them. I'm sure they'd find it hilarious.
Yeah.
And maybe that's bringing joy to people's day, which I love to see. I'm all about that. But it's not ingrained in me in that sense. So it's like, I don't know if I limit my own creativity, maybe, potentially.
I think, to be honest with you, I think with creativity, I think two things. The first one is that creativity is, you know, it's an ability that you'd have, like, regardless of whether you decide to use it or not. And also, it doesn't really matter the channel. I think we get attached to a specific channel, which could be, I don't know, music, or it could be painting, it could be anything, and that's the way that we decide to express our creativity. But it could be anything, really. That's what I experienced with myself personally. You know, I'm a very creative person, and I think back in the day, obviously, I used to express that through music all the time. Now there's very little music like in my life, apart from the music that I listen to, but I don't really produce music anymore. But I still found different pathways to express my creativity, which could be through content, or it could be through just, you know, getting ideas, you know, to grow the business. In a way, even, you know, being a business owner can be a very creative job, you know, especially when you're trying to create something unique. So going back to being more of a commercial model, going back to those days, did you feel like, because obviously you have very specific looks. Did you ever feel objectified?
What model doesn't?
Mm.
Yeah, I think, and that's exactly the problem with modeling. Is you're a number. Don't give a fuck who you are. You're a number. You're expendable. In and out the door very easily. Don't want the job, someone else will do it. Don't like something, someone else will like it. And that's it. You are an object. I mean, that's what you are to any company. Look at all the Adidas campaigns, all the Nike campaigns, anything that doesn't include some form of high socially seen person, such as a celebrity or Z-lister. Look at all those campaigns. Never once was the same model used on any of them. Never. Never. Because they pay that model a few grand, their face is plastered everywhere for a year. Maybe you see them again in 5 years because people look back on that campaign. You'll never see that model ever again. That's it, gone. 3 grand for the day, done. Never again. Simple. They're an object. And the next campaign, they'll get someone else in. And the next campaign, they'll get someone else in. The next campaign, and so on and so forth. And that's exactly the issue with modelling is you know that you stand there, you're an object, they put clothes on you, you promote a product, or, you know, you work for a company and a brand, and then you're out the door and on comes the next. You know, I've been at ASOS and Boohoo, and it's been like there'll be 2-3 models sitting on the side, and then you'll go in and you'll change, and they'll go in and you'll change. It's just like object, out the door, in with the next. And it's like, see ya, bye. That was it. That's exactly the problem. And you kind of have to be if you want to make it in the modelling industry. You know, for a long time, people such as Cara Delevingne and so were like that. Luckily, these are also individuals, or not luckily, I mean, fortunate for these individuals, they're also very creative, they're very expressive, and they can kind of, because of their passion in other areas on the side of modelling, they're loud enough to create a voice for themselves that enables them to be successful in areas aside from modelling, that kind of takes them away from just being an object and just being a piece of meat that's going to go turn left, right, and then get off. You know, they have a voice, but not all models are like that. You know, there's also a lot of models that do campaigns and they just say yes, out the door.
Do you think that has to do with the industry, not the individual?
Yeah, I think it has a lot. It's all about 100% all about the industry. And I think I couldn't imagine there's any model that has never felt objectified in any way at all within the industry, at least who's had some decent jobs. I don't know how it was for yourself, but I mean,
I never really modeled, but yeah, I will probably just, you know, quickly get bored of you know, a situation in which I can't really express myself. So I can definitely see the urge of, you know, wanting to create something that would then have a bit more space for you to actually express yourself. Yeah,
I mean, and then that's what kind of comes along with a lot of these models. You can see them doing very well on other platforms.
So would you say that perhaps at the time you developed some sort of, you know, a degree of body dysmorphia? Because that obviously is, yeah, I mean, that's usually associated with bodybuilding to an extent as well. And I feel like you've been in both worlds almost at the same time for some time. So did you feel like that fucked up with your head a bit? Or?
Yeah, I think the body dysmorphia for sure I had from childhood, from school, and kind of, like I say, having it in my face, body image in my face from quite an early age. Oh, but yeah, 100%. Oh God, if you know, this is the thing. Like, so I have a goddaughter. She's fucking beautiful. And you see, you're a very beautiful girl. She breaks some hearts, I tell you. And you know, like, I've been thinking for a long time, like, she's beautiful. Could get her into some little like child modelling, younger modelling, putting her with some like youth agencies and stuff. And I'm like, do I want her to go down that route?
Yeah.
Because it's toxic as fuck.
Yeah. And then, you know, it becomes all about how you look. Yeah.
That's all it becomes about. How your hair, your eyes, your lips, your boobs, your bum, your arms. Are you skinny enough? Have you eaten enough? Should you get a boob job? Do you need lip fillers? It's a downward spiral. And the minute you're in that spiral, the only way is down. It's very hard to pull yourself out of it. Most modelling, it is constant 24/7 obsession about how you look, constant staring in the mirror, looking at yourself, looking at your phone. Is your hair good? It's like everywhere you go becomes about your image. Like, sometimes, don't know about you, I just want to lounge around in my joggers, you know.
Oh yeah, that's what I do all day.
Right.
Personally.
Right.
Yeah. So what was that process like for you then?
In the sense of kind of getting myself out of this obsession with my look.
Or if you ever actually did get obsessed.
What I realised is that all the overthinking we do, all the self-obsession about our image and what we're doing and whatever it is, the actions that we behold, no one gives a fuck. You know, so many people in the gym are like, oh, I've got to lift this weight because these people are here and I've got to do this and I've got to have my hair like this and my clothes like this. I was like, have you ever gone up to any one of these people and asked them what the fuck they thought? Because not one of them would be like, oh yeah, I was thinking that you look fucking skinny today, or I hated your t-shirt, or like you could have fucking got a different barber. No one gives a flying fuck.
Yeah, I mean,
all in our mind, isn't it? It's all
even if it was the case, you know, that someone actually cared.
What does it mean to us?
Yeah, and I think that's the real question. Why do you care? Why do you care what other people think? Why is that so important to you? So yeah, so I think, you know, with you, I think it's quite interesting because you could have easily just had a career just based on your looks, but you obviously decided not to, and I think that's quite significant. And that's obviously because you realize that there's so much more in you than just, you know, what you look like. And I think that is one aspect of it. The other aspect perhaps could be related to the fact that you just realized that you didn't really need that recognition, because that's also, I think, a path that is very easy to follow for a lot of people. I get into this industry because I want to recognize as good looking. I want to feel beautiful. You know, if I'm a model and I do that for a living, I'm certified beautiful. You know what I mean? So I think there's, you know, two aspects there, but yeah, I just found it quite interesting that you obviously decided that that wasn't the path for you. Right. And even though right now you might not necessarily feel grounded, you might not necessarily feel like, okay, I'm doing this thing, this is who I am, you would still rather feel lost than just being in that, you know, spiral. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
It's just like, is it worth it? I'd rather be in a place where no one fucking knows who I am, be able to be creative and healthy and just live my life. You know, I think this kind of concept of like, oh yeah, fucking let's all get rich and famous. It's like, well, what do either of those two things bring you? I mean, okay, you got a camera shoved in your face 24/7, and well, more money in your bank account doesn't exactly buy you health. So
why did you decide to move out of the UK?
I was very unhappy. I was very unhappy in the UK. Yeah, I mean, the pandemic hit, and I was like,
what was the pandemic like for you? Because some of us loved it, some of us hated it.
It was, for me, it was hard because I was young. I was figuring shit out. I had a plan. I was one of these kids in school who was like, I know what the fuck I want. And every kid was like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm older. And I was like, I know what I want.
What did you want at the time?
Well, it was funny because it's nothing what I've taken on the path now. I mean, the financial side, yeah, but when I was young, I was like, I'm going to be an engineer in Formula One. My godmother was Claire Williams. So I was like, my mother had worked in Formula One for over 10 years. I was like, I'm going to be a mechanical engineer. I'm going to work in Formula One. I'm going to fucking earn shitloads of money. I'm going to become financially free. I'm going to build a house in South Africa and everything's going to be sweet. Didn't take that path at all. And
why not?
I found fitness. I don't know. I found a completely different path, and I moved to Switzerland, and all of these things changed. And the pandemic was hard because I've been financing my mother for like 6-7 years now. And when the pandemic hit, it was intense. I was like, now all of a sudden the world is going into a lockdown like it's some apocalypse. I was like, my income has basically just come to a halt, more or less. I can't go and train, which is the only place I got to release any of my stress at any given point in the day. At least that's how I dealt with stress back then. It fucking drove me into the craziest spiral of my life. My mum throughout my childhood was also she suffered with depression and mental health and stuff like this. You know, so it was like I kind of had, by nature, I'd seen this growing up, and it was something that, you know, I knew very well firsthand, and the pandemic sent me into a very similar spiral. And I was like, the only way that I can pull myself out of this is if I take myself out of the equation. Like, I need to pull myself out of this environment. So I was like, I'm packing my bags, I'm going to Sweden. The first month I was in Sweden, I knew that I wanted to try to get to Switzerland, but the borders were still closed. I'd been previously doing some work in Switzerland, personal training and stuff with clients that I'd met in London. So I was like, this is my in between. So
Yeah.
the first month I was in Sweden, I was studying German religiously. I was trying to gain online clients and do like home workouts and stuff like this. But it was rough. I remember like by the 6th week, because rent was so expensive there because I was Airbnb-ing. And like I say, I was very young. I wasn't fucking wealthy. I was like, I don't know, 19 maybe. By the 5th, 6th week, I was like fucking in the corner of this beautiful apartment, bawling my eyes out, thinking I've got no money. Rent is literally due in 2 days. And I was like, I have fucking no idea what I'm going to do. The whole world is crashing down on me. I'm not going to be able to pay my mother. Like, I don't know what the fuck I do. And it was tough. I was like, fucking buck your ideas up and get shit done.
So what's the biggest lesson that you learned through that time?
It gets easier if you don't give up.
Personally, I'm not too sure if it does get easier, but I think what it does is that you get used to.
We become more resilient.
Yeah. You get used to that kind of, hassle, that kind of pain, that kind of level of effort that you have to put into the things that you do. And if anything, the level of effort gradually increases, because I believe in life, the good and the bad, they just grow together. And so if you want to, grow in life and you want to, make good shit happen, you also have to be ready to kind of face all the deviations and the difficulties that come with that. But I think, as you say, if you don't give up and you kind of keep pushing through, then you learn how to deal with these things a lot better. And I think, at least for me personally, like the one good thing about the pandemic is that we didn't really have a choice. It's going back to the beginning of the podcast where we were talking about having too much of a choice. I think during the pandemic, like the situation was quite limiting. And because of that, you had to get creative in finding a way to, to do something that, would be helpful for yourself, for the community, and obviously just survive in general. And I think that either makes you or breaks you. For a lot of people, it was the case of just really finding their, inner tiger and just, and pull that out. And I think a lot of people managed. I really do believe that year changed the life of a lot of people for the better and the worse as well.
It woke us up. It taught me that I needed to put myself first more. The reason I spiraled down with my mental health and well-being was because it actually been sacrificed for so long to put other things first, be it materialistic, be it people, be it work, be it money, be it whatever it was. It was like I sacrificed well-being to put those things first. And if well-being isn't put first, those things can never be optimal because it's going to bite you. It's going to come back to bite you eventually. For example, you could sleep 9 hours every single day and you have like 1 3-hour sleep or 1 4-hour sleep. It's not so bad. But you do that 3-4 nights in a row, it bites you on the 4th night. You're like, oh, I feel like shit. And that's the thing. It's putting yourself first is so important.
So I was talking to a friend of mine about the balance between masculinity and femininity in people. And I think, with you having worked as a model, there was probably like a great amount of time in which you had to kind of access the femininity side within you. Where are you at with that? Like, do you feel like you have a good balance between both? Have you ever, suffered from feeling inadequate from, being too feminine or perhaps not feminine enough in certain situations?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. For me, if we're talking traditionally, I think where I kind of I've been more in touch with that kind of feminine side, thinking more emotionally, empathically and stuff like this, would actually be what I've learned from my partner. When your partner is spiritual and in her traditional role and makes it okay to be in that role, that's where I learned so much about meditating and like, it's cool to look after yourself. Healthcare is so important. Like, we can go get a facial together, or like she's going to go to the manicure or pedicure and I'm going to get a haircut because healthcare is important. The feminine side actually can really help your health as a man if you get in touch with it. As a model, I've always had like this young pretty boy face, so I'm going to be like this boy around the house pretty boy look. I've never been like this stern macho man model that you see with Boss and Armani. So yeah, for me, modeling never really taught me that, because it was like modeling
But it was more a relationship matter.
It was like wherever there was creativity modeling, it was because me and the photographer saw something there. One thing my mum was always good at when I was a child is like, tell me how you feel. Like, let it be known. Like, I'm not going to restrict you. I'm not going to put you in a box with anything. You do whatever you want with your life, so long as it's not illegal and it doesn't hurt anyone. Everything's open here. You can be yourself, gay, straight, whatever it is. You want to put nail polish on your fucking fingers, I don't care. Like, you be you. I'm open. We're cool. Let's speak about it. I'm here. And like, there's no boundaries. I'm not going to put you in a box. Just do what makes you happy. And I think that for me was a very positive role in my childhood growing up, because it didn't box me and it didn't make me feel enclosed. And it did just kind of let me explore who I want to be, whether that be more feminine or more masculine or somewhere in between.
Yeah, I feel like that's what a lot of people need a lot of the time. It's just the freedom of expressing themselves without having to be constrained with being a certain way for a certain environment. And I also do think that the environment counts when it comes to, you know, balancing your masculine and feminine energy, especially when we're talking about the, you know, the family environment.
I think anyway, too many constraints on a person is only gonna almost force someone into wanting to rebel. You know, if you try to put chains on someone or trap them in a box or a cage, they're gonna want to get out.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
And I think then I've seen this a lot in siblings. I find this very interesting when there's two children, you know, but they're both treated in the same way. One is usually super rebellious, and the other's really straight on the path, head down, focused. So it's very individual. But I feel like if you're gonna restrain someone, they're for sure more inclined to want to rebel. So
awesome! Thank you so much for coming, bro. Where can people find you?
Instagram, Ellis_Kane_, if people want to see me there.
If you're watching this on YouTube, just make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. And I'll see you in the next episode.